Former President Trump will be joining me at the top of the next hour, so tune in for that. You can also watch it online on the Salem News Channel or listen online at hughhewitt.com if you can't find it in the radio or you're listening at work. I'm joined now by Noah Rothman, senior writer for National Review. Good morning, Noah. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. Good to see you.
I got to tell you, I've inflicted on the audience most of last night's chaotic and confusing Kamala Harris town hall on CNN. Did you watch it?
I did watch it.
Tell us your assessment.
She's forging new paths in ways to demonstrate how maladroit she is as a campaigner. We all kind of knew this. This was conventional accepted wisdom, and when she accepted the nomination, but motivated reasoning compelled everybody to subordinate that understanding to the desire that she meet the moment, that she rise to the moment. She can't rise to the moment. One of David Axelrod's observations after this thing was that town halls as a format are a good moment for you to connect directly with another human being. Look them in the eyes, address their comments, and then you can weave your stump speech into that answer. But initially, you have to respond like a human being. And she can't do it. She just will not do it. She's allergic to drilling down on particulars, so she ends up appearing evasive. At one point, one of the questioners asked her, we in Bucks County or wherever they are in the collar counties, pride authenticity around here. And, you've been a bit of a shapeshifter, I'm paraphrasing. So how do you explain to the satisfaction of me, which is you haven't done so yet, your policy evolutions? And she just launches into this practiced answer. She had practiced canned stump speech answers throughout that town hall, which betrays the whole problem. It undermines the whole point of having a town hall in the first place. This is an opportunity for her to shed a lot of the lizard affect that she has, this reptilian control.
My oldest grandchild, Noah, my oldest grandchild just was in the school play, and my wife rehearsed her lines with her. And so she went around the house rehearsing her lines and saying her line. If she were in a town hall and just used the lines that she would rehearse, she'd do about as well as Kamala Harris. I mean, we've heard all of those answers before. Do they not know this at Team Harris, that it's like fingernails on a chalkboard?
I mean, Hugh, that's a funny analogy, because if she had taken an acting class, if she had done some Meisner exercises and just gone back and forth with her line readings with somebody and tried to mimic the emotional
I don't know what that means, Noah. I'm not a theater kid. What?
This is Meisner technique. Meisner technique is you say the same thing. You say something that somebody else says. It could be nothing, ham sandwich. But you have to mimic the emotion that you're getting from your partner. You have to respond with the proper emotion that you're getting from your partner. You can say ham sandwich, and then he says ham sandwich, and you say ham sandwich. Like, that is how that works. It demonstrates that you have an emotional connection with the person you're talking with, so that whatever's coming out of your mouth has the proper affect. And she can't do it. If she were to take a Meisner class, she might actually be very effective. But right now, what she sounds like is somebody who's saying pre-programmed lines and speaking over the heads of her audience. She's refusing, trying even not to connect with her audience and speaking to a much broader audience out there that she imagines is receptive to this, to what she's saying. Another weird thing about this town hall. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Tell me another weird thing, because
Jake Tapper said at the end of the town hall that included in this audience of undecided, persuadable voters, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, but progressives who are dissatisfied with her campaign because they don't think she's far left enough. And there were a couple of questions in that audience from people with really wide eyes who were very intensely desirous to see Kamala Harris throw Israel under the bus, to expand the Supreme Court, all the stuff that her campaign should be avoiding now. And her campaign walked her into it. They accepted those terms. What on earth are they thinking? This is the opposite of what she needs. It's like they walked their own candidate into a minefield.
Well, I got to play for you what you're talking about. The most wide-eyed person is the anti-Israel person. Cut number 18 for Noah, me, and the audience.
My question is, as president, what would you do to ensure not another Palestinian dies due to bombs being funded by U.S. tax dollars?
Stop. So, Noah, how do you like that for a question?
I don't like it for a question, which is why I, if I were given it, would reject the premise. This is not hard for Kamala Harris to do at this stage. She does not need to appease far left radical progressives. I'm sorry, even small demos in Michigan, in the suburbs, where she needs to drive up the numbers, a conventional Democratic campaign overcomes dissatisfaction among the progressive left by driving up enthusiasm among the suburbanites. Those people that this campaign is appealing to, white suburbanite liberals with high incomes and a degree. That is the demo that she needs to drive up. Now, there's overlap there. The Venn diagram does overlap. But that's not all they care about. In fact, most voters don't care about foreign policy, period, much less a war in which the United States is not involved, save for giving material and rhetorical support to one of its righteous combatants. It's not going to be a deciding issue for anybody, save a really narrow sliver of college educated activist types like that woman, who, by the way, would swallow her pride and cast a ballot for Kamala Harris because she doesn't like the alternative more. You can bank those votes, and this campaign just won't do it. They're too nervous about it. Maybe their data is telling them that they can't afford to rest on their laurels, but I doubt it because the data is all going in the wrong direction everywhere.
Do you think maybe the data is telling them that you've lost and try and make it as less of a blowout as possible? I don't want to be optimistic. Yeah. I was optimistic in 2012 and I was wrong. I was pessimistic in 2016 and I was wrong. So I'm trying to stay emotionally neutral. I've already voted for Trump and Vance, and Dwayne thinks the numbers can't be surmounted at this point. Trump's going to win, but I won't go there because we don't know. What do you think, Noah?
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to say. If you're looking at the state level polls, it's parsing entrails. But the national polls are telling a pretty consistent story at this point. Donald Trump has momentum. His vote share is rising, whereas Kamala Harris's is stable. And that momentum is a lagging indicator, right? The polling is telling us what people were telling pollsters when they were in the field, which could be a week ago. And momentum doesn't seem to be stalling for Donald Trump. You have to assume then that it's continuing. And that momentum is coming at precisely the right time. And you have to say to yourself, okay, well, do Republicans still have any advantage in the Electoral College? Because you have to say that if Democrats are underperforming the national polls, then they're underperforming the popular vote, and Republicans usually outperform in the Electoral College relative to their popular vote totals. And if past performance is indicative of future results, you can say that Kamala Harris has a superior ground operation. I think she does. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, that Democrats are going to do better at getting out their vote on election day than Republicans do. It's a well-oiled machine. But that only overcomes a disadvantage among voters if there's enough voters in the available universe of voters to drive out to the polls to get your vote over the 50+1 margin or 49.5, whatever it happens to be. And the polling is telling us that the voters just may not be there. There just may not be enough of those voters. This was always the problem if you're relying on a college-educated base of voters, that most people in this country do not have college degrees. Just numerically, raw numbers. There is not enough of them. You need to expand that base. And Kamala Harris has tried, and I think they realize they failed, which is why they're retreating to some really
think
comfortable
she is underperforming? Why is she underperforming with Latinos and blacks?
I think she's underperforming with those voters for the same reason she's underperforming with just about all Americans who are concerned about their financial well-being. This is not a demographic specific issue. Inflation really stinks. It drives people crazy. They hate it. Your reduced purchasing power is a universal issue. And we don't have a lot of evidence to suggest that incumbents in this environment in the Western world do well. Anti-incumbency is a phenomenon across the Western world, has been since 2021, when inflation hit here and it hit everywhere else too. Mostly as a remnant of the pandemic, although I think Joe Biden's policies exacerbated it. Nevertheless,
I've got to go to break. I would like to ask you one question we can start now, which is whether or not, I don't know if they'll do this in the exit polling, the lack of her candor about President Biden's condition has hurt her. Do you think that has mattered? And we'll continue after the break, so just get started now.
A lot. I think it's one of the primary reasons why, if we look at the results on Wednesday, November 6th, and she's lost, I think that's one of the primary reasons why. She doesn't seem to feel like it would advantage her to create any distance, and maybe it wouldn't. Maybe Republicans leverage that comment and Democrats are unenthused by it, and on net, she loses by making that admission. I don't know. But it's one that she feels like she cannot make. She cannot create sufficient distance from Joe Biden. She's asked and asked and asked again, and she just refuses to do it. And Joe Biden's legacy is absolute baggage. And he's out there stumbling, wandering around the stage, not knowing where he is, ratifying Republican talking points by saying we got to put him in jail. He's doing her no favors, and yet she won't distance herself. Indeed, she's protecting him from the criticism he deserves.
There are two
And
questions here, which I'm going to come back. One is distancing from you on policy, meaning he didn't do enough on this and this. And the other is absolute honesty about the fact his capacity is definitely de minimis, if not completely gone. No, it's two questions. I said, does it matter that she has covered up the president's incapacity? And you answered that she has not distanced herself enough from Biden. Distancing herself from Biden is necessary, and she hasn't done it. And being honest about Biden is necessary, and she hasn't done it. I don't think they're the same thing, though. Do you?
no, I think you're right. They're distinct, and one's easier to navigate than the other. She can make more distance between her and this administration on policy. I think the problem is that her instincts on policy are to go farther left than Joe Biden, and progressivism is what's weighing Joe Biden down. Joe Biden deferred to the progressive activists in his camp, not just on legislation, which was consistently far left, but on affect, on demeanor. He would consistently defer to the themes that arose in the 2020 post Derek Chauvin environment, in which he would attack the justice system for doing things he wanted it to do, like seeing Derek Chauvin convicted of that killing in 2020, and he would indict America for being this indelible original sin of racism, even though the system was doing as performed. It was those little digs at the country that had elevated him to the presidency that I think contributed to a lot of dissatisfaction with his demeanor, with his affect, with his comportment. All those things
It's
Kamala
so
Harris
easy
likes.
to
She's not
answer
going to distance herself from that.
Hallie Jackson just crushed her the night before unintentionally, saying, "Why are you here then if he's completely fine?" And the answer to me is pretty easy. The president has done a great job, Hallie Anderson. He's doing a great job still, but he's also slowing down as every 81-year-old, and 80-year-old shouldn't be president. He's recognized that, and that's why Donald Trump shouldn't be president as well. But he's slowed down, but he's still there. He's got his game. I see his game every day, but he realized 4 years is a long time, and so he decided to do what's in the best interest of the country. How hard is that to do, Noah?
I mean, that was a great answer, but it's still retailing a lie. It's not true, and we can see it with
Well,
our own
she's
eyes.
lying all the time.
I mean, the biggest problem with this is you're trying to sell voters on something they don't believe. You're trying to tell them, don't believe the evidence
Yes.
of your own eyes, believe me. And that is just a reputation killer. It sacrifices your credibility on a range of issues. Now, what is she supposed to say? She could say what you said, but that still doesn't insulate her against the charge that she deliberately misled the American people when it was politically convenient. And she did. There is no answer to it. That's part of the problem. She can't get herself out of it. It's the truth. So she's in
It's
a
the truth.
difficult position. One of the things she said last night at the town hall was a bad moment, is that she said she didn't have a legislative priority, which makes a lot of sense because she didn't want to run for president. She had no intention of running for this office, and it's coming up to catch her. She doesn't know what to do with it if she were to catch the bus, and it's really hard to massage that. People can see it.
Will this ever happen again? No, we literally have 30 seconds. Will this ever happen again? Because it's such a disaster for Democrats.
I mean, if she loses, it's unlikely that it will ever happen again. If she wins, I think that it would be great because we would dispense with the 2-year-long presidential campaign and start it up as we used to start it up again in the year in which the presidential election is taking place, or at least
And back to smoke room, smoky back rooms.
And I think that's an act of political hygiene. That's part of the problem is Democrats are going to look at getting rid of Joe Biden and say, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that at all. No, Democrats never let anybody talk you out of this elementary act of political hygiene that you performed. Joe Biden cannot perform in the job that he is in. What you did was smart and good and valuable and justified, even if it comes up short. I really hope they don't take the wrong lessons away from this cycle.
Noah C. Rothman, always good to hear you on the editors, and sometimes when you're on the commentary pod, it's always good to read your stuff at National Review. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'll be right back. Former President Trump will be joining me at the top of the hour. If you want to hear the entire half hour that I have set aside with the former and I believe future president, you'll have to tune in via hughhewitt.com or listen to the entire hour of the radio show, as I'll play those portions which are off air in the first half hour. In the second half hour, Donald Trump coming up on our next on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Let me remind everyone, the closing argument by the Democrat, I don't think they have one. I mean, last night was such a fiasco on CNN, the night before a fiasco on NBC. She's had fiascos with 60 Minutes. She had a fiasco with the sex tape podcast, not sex tape, but sex podcast. I can't remember what the name of that one was. She's turned down Joe Rogan because she can't do a half hour, much less 73 hours with Joe Rogan or any semi-serious interviewer. She can't make it. She can't do it. She's frozen in the headlights. And it's like she knows there's a steamroller coming towards her, and she's standing in the middle of the road. And I don't know how anyone can be this bad at this. And the only answer is the California political process is deeply broken because the San Francisco, Oakland, Bay Area, Silicon Valley machine turned out ultra liberals that then the LA machine elected in concert with the San Francisco machine. And the San Francisco machine is ultra hard left. And the Los Angeles machine is simply go along to get along. And the Republican Central Valley isn't even close to winning. So every statewide office in California is held by a Democrat, and they're all left-wing Democrats. And there's no way to get out of that. And Kamala Harris grew up in that system by being silent as to dissent and actually never developing a coherent set of policies and having a Senate staff that she blew through like Lucy, the famous episode in the chocolate factory, but the staff members were the chocolates. And she just ran through staff as vice president as well. And she's just not prepared for this. It's that simple. She's a terrible candidate because she's not ready to be president. She has no skill set, no minimum skill set. That's why I voted for Donald Trump. I think that's why a majority of Americans, I think he's going to win the popular vote at this point. I don't know. I'm not making a guarantee. I have all the experts telling me that he's doing very well in the early vote. I have all the experts telling me the polls say he should win. I don't believe anything because I thought Mitt Romney was going to win in 2012 and Hillary Clinton was going to win in 2016 and Donald Trump was going to win in 2020. So I'm 0 for 3 in the last 3 elections. I had Obama right. I had W and W right. So I went 4 in a row, and then I've lost 3 in a row. So I'm basically batting a little bit above 500, which is a coin flip. And that's what I think of this election, a coin flip. You could wake up on Wednesday with Kamala Harris as president if you do not get out and vote early. So please go out and vote early. Now, I do want to talk about Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation is a sponsor of our program. And Project 2025 is routinely demonized on every cable. I stopped watching cable panels because it's just silly. Project 2025. It's a great work of conservative thinkers on a variety of fronts. It's not Donald Trump's platform. It's not Donald Trump's people. It's not what Donald Trump is basically a Nelson Rockefeller Republican, which doesn't make any sense to you of anyone who's under 60 or maybe under 50. But Rocky was a New York Republican, a liberal Republican, spend a lot of money, do a lot of big things, try and do it more efficiently, build infrastructure. Sort of an old school California Democrat, Pat Brown Democrat. And again, you got to be over 80 to remember Pat Brown. But the point is that Donald Trump is not a radical. He upsets some people because of deportment, doesn't upset me. All I'm here to tell you is that Heritage's Project 2025 is not Donald Trump's project, but it is worth reading. So go to 25truth.com, 25truth.com. Find out what really is in Project 2025 and why the Heritage Foundation is to be complimented for doing it. All right. 25truth.com, 25truth.com. Former President Trump is joining me at the top of the hour. We're not going to go to commercial break on the Salem News Channel. So if you're watching on the app or directly on television networks across the country where the Salem News Channel is, you'll be able to hear the first 6 minutes before I come back live on the air with him on the radio. And this is the juggling one does. And that which you don't hear on the radio. If you're traveling, don't worry. At the bottom of the hour, when the former president and I believe future president is done, I will then take the second half of that hour to play what you didn't hear off air. But if you want to hear it live, it starts at the top of the next hour when the former president calls me. I want to tell you about why I love going out on affiliate visits. There's one part of it I don't love, which is it's a lot of travel and it's a long night. And I always take the morning off the next morning because I can't go to 10 o'clock at night and then show up at a studio at 4 o'clock anymore. I can't do that. And so I nevertheless value being outside of the Beltway. That's why I stayed up in Maine so long. That's why I love being in Ohio and talking to people. State auditor talked to me about Measure 1 in Ohio, as did Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State. And I didn't know about Issue 1 at all. It's a terrible thing. It's a 26-page initiative put together by the hard left and funded by $24 million in dark money. Less than 1% came from individual Buckeyes. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to crack 26 pages of small print. And what's it designed to do? Ohio is a 10-5 RD congressional delegation. And the hard left wants to permanently put in 9 Democrats and 6 Republicans, and maybe worse. So they've engineered this Rube Goldberg commission. Now, Ohio already has a redistricting commission. 7 members. It was voted in 2015. I hate redistricting commissions. I think they're all unconstitutional anyway. But Ohio's works just as well as anyone's does right now. But it's fair. And therefore, it came up with 10-5 because Ohio's a red state. It would be like a fair redistricting commission in Massachusetts would do the same, about 2/3 Democrat, 1/3 Republican. But in Ohio, it's 2/3 Republican, 1/3 Democrat. California, it's more like 80% Democrats, 20% Republican. That's proportionality, but we're not a proportional system. We're a representative democracy. And these line drawing efforts are now being done for compactness and coherence. And I understand that, and I get it. People think gerrymandering is terrible. It's not, but I get it. It's fine. But boy, is Issue 1 awful. And you wouldn't know that unless you went to Ohio. And you wouldn't know how well Bernie Moreno is doing in Ohio unless you saw 1,000 people go nuts for him on Tuesday night, which Mike Gallagher and I did. Bernie's got real sparkle. And I met Mrs. Moreno for the first time. She's got real sparkle. They're going to be great senators. It's time to retire old Sherrod Brown. I mean, he's been in government longer than I have been out of college. So he graduated 2 years earlier than I did, and he went right into the Ohio legislature, and he's never not gotten a government paycheck since. And he's just too liberal for Ohio. Too liberal for Ohio. It's like Bernie Moreno's team came up with a message, too liberal for Ohio, and they stuck with it for 6 months, and they cannot reverse it. Even though my podcast, when I was in the Columbus airport yesterday morning, catching up on podcasts, they all had anti-Bernie Moreno ads. So they got a lot of money, a lot of dark money out there, buying up everything they can. Doesn't matter. The American people know what they need to do. They need to return Donald Trump to the White House. They need to vote for, I want to go through all of them. I did it in the Fox News column 2 days ago. Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, Larry Hogan in Maryland, Hung Kao in Virginia, Bernie Moreno in Ohio, Eric Hovde in Wisconsin, Kerry Lake in Arizona, Nella Domenici in Nevada, in New Mexico, Sam Brown in Nevada, Tim Sheehy in Montana, and I forgot one. That's what happens when you try and do something by memory. Ted Cruz is going to win going away, but you got to get out there and work hard. Ditto Rick Scott. Deb Fisher of Nebraska really needs your help to make sure, again, the cloud of dark money that is passing over this country is so enormous, and it's imbalanced, but it doesn't matter because the American people trust the people. Churchill's famous saying, I trust the American people. They don't trust Kamala Harris. And to unpack that a little bit, you need to listen to Dwayne's World yesterday. One of the podcasts I listened to was Dwayne's World, and he and Jim Talent were going through the numbers. And it's for geeks, right, Dwayne? You have to really geek out on the numbers to understand this.
And I realize I do that at my own peril, but you have to look at some of the data to understand why their optimism is there. I'm not just whistling past the graveyard and trying to give you happy talk. I'm trying to tell you exactly what I'm looking at that causes me to do that. And I'm saying that from a year ago, being a person who didn't think that Donald Trump could close a deal because his negatives would be too high. And I didn't think that, barring seeing data to the contrary, he could pull this off. I have now seen not just a couple of pieces of data, but there's data within virtually every poll out there that shows there is strength this time that was not there last time, and that Kamala Harris is underperforming everywhere.
Well, right now they're like throwing, as Nixon used to say, throwing pebbles at a battleship, because all this stuff about fascist it was so bad last night. Town halls are where Bill Clinton killed it, right? Back in 1992. I feel your pain. I understand what you're saying. We got to get you some help. We're going to get you some help. I'm going to get in there and we're going to bring the country together. And I'm going to. She's got nothing.
No.
There's nothing there.
She is absolutely conflict averse and risk averse. Anytime, any subject, any question, and she opens up that file folder in her mental file cabinet and gives a rote practice focus group answer that she thinks will suffice on the subject, even though it has nothing to do with the question it was at.
Now, I have a question for you. Do you remember in the old days when they didn't realize this, the hard left did not realize that NPR is their radio network. So they tried to launch a radio network. What was it called? Do you remember the name of it?
Oh, yeah. Air America. That was
Air America.
Al Franken was...
Al Franken, Rachel Maddow. It failed miserably, right? It just completely failed. MSNBC works because there's no hard left alternative. But on the radio, there's NPR, which is hard left. So no one went to it, but it failed miserably. Let me pose for you a little mind exercise. How would Kamala Harris do as a talk show host?
Oh, awful. And here's why. The problem with radio and being somebody on the left is you can't just give a 30-second and a 1-minute thing and then go to a break all the time. You have to be able to be passionate enough about it to speak at length. And if you're a lefty, there's only a handful that can really pull that off.
The reason she would fail is I don't think she does any work.
No.
I don't think she studies anything. All I do is listen and read, because my job is to be good on the radio and good on television, to entertain, inform, and persuasively argue and incisively question. That's all I have to do.
She treats every interview and every subject like it's an exam, and she's got to memorize what she's got to memorize ahead of the exam. It's exam.
No, she treats it like a minefield. I was listening the other day to Manny Fabian, who is the Times of Israel military correspondent, and he went into Lebanon, and he said it was kind of wild because they had to clear the minefield. And so do not step anywhere behind, except in front of follow the guy in front of you, because we're going through a minefield. And I thought, that's how she approaches every interview. It's like it's a minefield, but you can't win an election that way. You got to be happy and confident.
The joy has left the building. A column I wrote for Hot Air was Kamala's joy got trumped by Donald's Happy Meal.
Okay, now I want to tell everyone, I have to pay Dwayne a compliment. And Harley and Adam. When they put Dwayne's World together, they had the single greatest screen capture ever. The Art of the Meal. There you go. Trump, The Art of the Meal. I don't know if anybody... Did you guys come up with that yourself?
I think it was Harley.
Harley, did you see it somewhere else?
Copied and swapped out meal.
No, that was
so
all
it was
Harley.
Original.
That was
okay. I
Harley.
came up with that idea, America. I want you all to know that.
You're welcome.
Harley has just been Dwayne'd.
Harley, I just want you to know it's not necessary for you to give me credit all the time, but only when something like a genius thing like
when
that
it's really good, then
when it's really good, it's mine, Harley.
Yes.
All right, Trump, The Art of the Meal. And I have been listening for 3 days now. The left tried to make this controversial. They
kept the story alive. It would have been a one-day story, but the left is so insistent upon trying to deny it was a real thing and it was a stunt. Of course it was a stunt. It
was
worked.
a stunt. And so was the CNN town hall a stunt. Town halls just don't happen. Those people don't, they're walking along the street and someone comes out and says, would you like to come to my town hall? It's not like Scientology recruiting you on the street. No, they put out the word to their networks, and I don't know where they did it from. I know they're in Bucks County, maybe.
No, it was in where was it? It was in
it's somewhere in Philly, and
outskirts of Philly. Yeah,
I'm going to Philly tonight. We don't take audience questions. Why? Because you got to screen them, and you don't want people who want to give a lecture instead of a question. So we talk among ourselves, and we have moderators, and sometimes we moderate questions on cards and things like that. But I'm going to tell you here right now. I have never seen a worse candidate for national office. And I want to go back. Ford versus Carter. Carter versus Reagan. Reagan versus Mondale. H.W. versus Dukakis. HW versus Clinton, Clinton versus Dole. And Dole was not very good, but he was a lot better than Kamala Harris because he was a little bit older and a little bit slower, but he knew his
But he
stuff.
knew
Bob Dole was
things.
really smart.
He knew issues.
He knew issues. Let me keep going. So Clinton beats Dole, and we come to 2000, and W beats Gore. They're both very smart men. It went into overtime in Florida. God, please, not this year. I hated that. Then Gore beats Kerry. They're both smart men. And then we had Obama, of course, crushing John McCain, and Obama upsetting Mitt Romney. And so they're all better. They're all better. Then we had Trump beating Hillary. Then we had Biden beating Trump. And now we have Trump beating Kamala Harris. Of all those people in my adult life, by far the worst candidate is Kamala Harris. And it isn't even close. It's like there are 15 candidates, there are 14 who are kind of bunched up here. The best candidate of them all was Barack Obama in 2008 because, he could soar.
Everybody in that room last night came out, including the cameraman, came out of there realizing that Kamala Harris is out of her depth in a bathtub.
She's terrible, and when you compare her to Barack Obama, who is great, you realize how far the democratic process has fallen. Coming up in 9 minutes, former President, and I think future President Trump calls me. If you want to watch all of it live and uninterrupted, download the Salem News Channel app or go find Salem News Channel on your television finder because it'll be on the entire half hour unbroken on the Salem News Channel. And I will play all of the audio in the course of the next hour so you don't miss any of it. I want to tell you one more thing before I get to talking with the former president about the future presidency. I do think he's going to win. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I won't ever allow myself to be over-enthusiastic again after 2012 because I thought Governor Romney was going to win. I think that campaign was given away by his campaign team, specifically Stuart Stevens. And I think Stuart is broken as a result and angry at the world because he knows he lost an election, especially with Orca, which was they should have taken off the shelf, get out the vote effort. And they didn't. They created their own system. It failed within the first hour of the election. Of course, Sandy Crowley didn't help, and Sandy roared ashore and gave Barack Obama a chance to be empathetic and in the moment, which he was very, very good at. But Donald Trump is better at that. The McDonald's bit was so brilliant. And the art of the meal, that's what Harley and Dwayne called it in Dwayne's World yesterday, and it's brilliant. But I was in Ohio on Tuesday with Donovan, who is the Ohio State Director for Americans for Prosperity. And I'm going to be with their Pennsylvania State Director. They're going to do about 150,000 door visits this weekend. Now, Ohio is red, but they want Bernie Moreno to win, and they want Issue 1 to lose. Vote no on Issue 1, you Buckeyes. That is a nightmare. I did not realize what a nightmare that was until I sat down with the state auditor of Ohio and got schooled in it. And David Yost, who's a great attorney general, who's also with us, along with Bernie, Mike Gallagher, and I, and our local folks in Columbus. We had a great time, 98.9, The Answer in Columbus, one of our great affiliates, where Urban Meyer first found the program. Good morning, Coach, if you're listening. He's got the new Triple Option podcast, which is fabulous, by the way. I'm going up to Philadelphia tonight to be with Larry Elder and Mike Gallagher and Chris DeGaulle. And I hope Dave McCormick is there. And we are doing the same thing, but we're doing it with Americans for Prosperity because AmericansForProsperity.org/volunteer has put together this vast grassroots effort that has gone on year after year. It's grown and it's grown and it's grown and it's grown. And if you just want to plug and play, you haven't done anything in politics in 20 years or 30 years, or you've never done a thing in politics, go to AmericansForProsperity.org/volunteer. They don't want your money. They want your time. They want your understanding and your commitment to free markets and free minds. They want you to get out there and elect Donald Trump. It's perfectly legal. The original AFP was a 501c3, didn't do politics, but now they have Americans for Prosperity Action, which is a different segment of the Internal Revenue Code. It's completely legal. It endures from year to year. Once you get plugged in, you can do as much or as little as you want. It's sort of like being a volunteer in any organization. If you want to work at the thrift shop, if you want to be a part of the Red Cross. Indeed, it's like any kind of church. You just decide how much you want to be in a church, and then you go and do it. I am here to tell you, though, I got to go back to Anderson Cooper on the wall because, it's hard to find a worse moment last night for Kamala Harris. It was so bad. But it might be Anderson talking to her about the wall. And I want to I want you to listen carefully to Anderson Cooper's question and then to her response, which is non-responsive, of course. And I don't want people to miss the point I'm trying to make, which is she is not answering the question. I can't find the number. Which number is the wall? Number 11. Okay, number
Under
11.
Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw was about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing
So
to a
come
bill
on.
that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it.
I think Kamala
Why
Harris
is there
is
any-
grounded in common sense and practical outcomes, because she certainly isn't grounded in the ability to talk about things. I mean, that was so bad. Are you for the wall? And it goes on. It goes on and on and on. And she won't finally say, she said, I'm open to anything at the end. She does not want to be on record saying, I support the wall. I really do think she's now into a campaign of evasion of accountability for the catastrophe that might happen, which I refuse to believe is going to happen to the Democrats on Tuesday, a week from this coming Tuesday. Good morning. I am back now with former President and I believe future President Donald Trump. Good morning, Mr. President. Welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Good morning.
I believe, and I have to tell the audience, full disclosure, I've already voted for you and J.D. Vance, and so I'm not a bipartisan or nonpartisan person. I'm hoping you win. I am cautiously optimistic. I appreciate you've made the program part of your closing kick. So this is a hypothetical, Mr. President. If somehow Kamala Harris managed to win this, she would have to deal with Xi Jinping, with whom you have dealt for a long time. How would Xi handle her?
Like a baby. He'd take all the candy away very quickly. He wouldn't have any idea what happened. It would be like a grand chess master playing a beginner. We would lose our country or be in World War III. It could be that would happen too, because she'd get exasperated. She's in no way able to handle him. He's a fierce individual. I watched her charade last night on CNN. It was an embarrassment that she's running for president, representing a major party.
That was pretty bad. I spent 2 hours talking about that last night. I think she's melting down and her internal polls are bad, but I want to stay on Xi for a moment. I think he's the biggest threat to America. I think he's dictator for life, and I think he's ruthless. Can you deter him from attacking Taiwan, Mr. President?
Yes, but I don't think he's a threat to America if you have the right president. I got along with him very good. I was tough on him, too. We took in $400 billion plus worth of tariffs. He wasn't thrilled with that, but I had a good relationship with him until COVID. That was a bridge too far, and I broke it up.
But he's leaning in pretty hard on Taiwan right now. He encircled the island this week with live fire drills. Do you think you can stop him from this nonsense? Because it would crash the world economy if he did that.
You don't know what's going to happen. He'd rather do it under them than have to do it with me.
There's a guy named Jimmy Lai, who's very important to America's Catholics, to the world's Catholic. He's a Catholic in Hong Kong, and he's, a great publisher, a billionaire like you. Xi has him in jail. Do you think you could speak to Xi when you're back in the presidency about getting Jimmy Lai out and out of the country?
100% yes.
Thank you.
Don't forget,
that
I
matters
got
a
the
lot to
basketball
Catholics.
players. I mean, look, when I was there, basketball players told things from Louis Vuitton, right? And they were being drafted. It was a big story. Remember? And It's automatic 10 years in China. I got them out. I said, listen, do me a favor. Let these guys out. They went there with the national basketball team, USA, was playing China.
Yep.
And they got caught stealing things. And I got them out. And I got them out relatively easy. I asked them, would you do me
I
a
hope
favor?
if you get Jimmy Lai out, that will be a great victory for freedom around the world. And he's an old man. He needs to come and be
By
in
the way,
America.
100% I'll get him out. He'll be easy to get out. But we don't have people that even talk about it. We don't have people talk.
No, we don't. They've abandoned him. So, Mr. President, everything about deterring China from attacking Taiwan, and we're going to get to Iran in a moment, depends upon your Secretary of Defense. Now, I got a lot of friends who are on your list. Tom Cotton, Mike Pompeo, Michael Waltz. My son actually worked for Waltz. Will you get your Secretary of Defense named early, like the week of the election, so they can get to work?
Yeah, I could, except it sounds. Are you talking about earlier than the victory? I'd rather have the victory first and then name.
No, after the election, like the first week after the election. So that
I do that very soon. I could do it. I have many good choices. I have 4 or 5 good choices. You named a couple of them, and they're very good. A lot of really very good choices.
Because that's the chain of command. You to the Secretary of Defense commanders.
Yep,
and
that's right.
SecDef
You got to
has
have a
to
guy
be
you can
strong.
work with, and you have to have a guy who can deal. You need to deal with for that position. No, absolutely. But I'm telling you, like you say, Jimmy Lai, that's going to be so easy. I'll get him out. There's no reason for him being there right now, except that he doesn't respect Biden and Kamala. Who would?
Yeah,
Who would respect them?
I think you're right.
I watched her last night, and she's like a child almost.
It was pretty awful last night. She can't communicate very well. And today's Wall Street Journal number.
Performance. Yeah, it was the worst performance. She hasn't had a good one, but this was the worst performance when you watch it. It was a longer period.
Yeah, I know you're joining me by cell.
With Brett Baer, the way they were rushing the questions, the people here, her people were screaming at him to stop. Now with you, because you have a tendency to go much longer than you agreed to, my people will say, "Thank you, sir. Thank you," and you go through them like it's candy. Okay, you go through them like Grant took Richmond. Okay, but
your comms people are pros. Your comms people are pros. Let's go back to the biggest threat: nuclear war. It's probably Iran, and our enemies. The other ones can be deterred with someone like you and a good Secretary of Defense. I'm not sure about Iran because they're run by fanatics. We talked about it last time. Do you think you can get Israel and our Gulf state allies to get rid of that regime before they get a nuke, Mr. President?
Well, I don't necessarily know that you have to, but I think that we are in a much better position. Had they followed Biden's advice, they would be waiting for a bomb to drop out of them. But fortunately, Bibi calls me quite a bit, and we have a lot of talks. But I always say, make up your own mind. But Bibi has his own opinions. Had Bibi listened to Biden, he would right now be waiting for a nuclear bomb to drop in the state. Okay? And now it's the opposite. He's put him in a very good negotiating position. I think he can do it. You want to know? I think he's in a position where he can fight them, or he can make a deal, and a good deal, a real deal.
Do you think the Abraham Accords will bring in Saudi Arabia quickly after you return to office?
Yes, very quickly. Not only Saudi Arabia, many other countries. I even mentioned when I did all the things I did with Iran. Iran was you've admitted that they were ready to make a deal. I could have made a deal then, but then we had that accident happen. Despite getting millions and millions of bucks I got the first time. And, it would have been for him to make. So I said, good luck, make that deal, it'll be easy. They never made the deal. And they put us at risk by not making that deal, but they could have made a deal. I really think that Iran right now can be spoken to very easily. And 4 months ago or 2 months ago, I think it would have been much more difficult.
If necessary, will you use force to stop them from getting the nuclear weapon online, Mr. President?
Yes, I would.
All right. I want to go to a big question, and I want to let you have the floor on this big question. It's not the greatest connection in the world, but it's an important. Biographers are going to be writing about you for decades and centuries. And one of the questions they're going to come up against is, why do some people hate you so much. I mean, Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. I've run into it. We saw it online repeatedly. The stuff they call you, the Hitler stuff, the fascist stuff. I saw your post on True Social. Why do you destabilize people this way?
Well, it's a gift, or it's something maybe less than a gift, but it's one way or the other. Because I have a tendency to win. It's a nice thing, and that bothers people. Sometimes I play a little bit rough, but they play rough. They are rough and vicious people. They are vicious people. They are dirty people. They've weaponized government. They've weaponized everything. And it's actually made me more popular. It's hard to believe. That's what you're also going to be wrestling with for years, because every time they do something, it makes me more popular. Even the players, but the others. But the people get it. The thing I've learned is the people are very smart. They get it. They get it better than the Democrats get it. And every single time they pulled out weaponization, every single time, with Fani, Fani is not even though she loves Fani. With Fani, with everybody, every time they do this, it's shocking. My polls still call me, "Sir, you're up 7 points." The next time, "Sir, you went up 6.2 points," and it's rather amazing. But Trump derangement syndrome, I don't know. I think I'm a nice person, but I'm a negotiator. But I win. Look, I've won for the Republican Party. I've taken the Republican Party and made it an entirely different party. Look at the numbers today. The Republican Party is a very big, powerful party. Before it was sort of an elitist party with real stiffs running it. You know what a stiff is? A stiff is
Oh, gosh, yes.
You know what?
You're having fun, too. I do think part of it is that you enjoy yourself, and they don't. But I know biographers are going to study this particular line. Were you aware when you got into politics that people would end up hating you this much?
Well, they hated me in business too because I won. When you win, people look. I wasn't supposed to beat Hillary, and I'll tell you little secrets. When it was in, I guess, 2020, I made phone calls for a congressman, and when we had like 38 more than they thought, remember that? That was me. I did that. I did all of that. I did teletown halls for congressmen. I'm doing it right now.
Yep.
I'm doing it right now. You're going to have more congressmen in the Republican Party than you think because I'm making teletown halls, meaning I call their district. And the advantage is I'm the only one people will get. Because the concept doesn't work. I'm the only one that people get on the phone for. And they get on by the thousands. If I make a call for a congressman who's even or a little down, to give you the names of everybody that's even, a little down, or a little up. Those are the ones you have to worry about, right? A little down, a little up. And then I make 35, 40 calls. Every one of them will win. And nobody knew that was it 20 or 22? It was 20, I guess 20. When we took in.
But when Ronald Reagan hammered Democrats, when Ronald Reagan crushed them in 1984, they did not hate him. So I don't really understand how otherwise sane and rational people lose their perspective. You will be there for 4 years. You will exit in January of 29. You will restore the American defense system. You will get some trade deals worked out. I'm going to talk to you about the EU going after Apple and the English Labour Party, Great Britain's Labour Party, is going after Elon Musk. I'll talk to you about all that. You defend America. Why does this upset so many people? You must think about this.
Well, it's a personality type, a little bit, I guess. Maybe Ronald Reagan was a softer person. He was a softer person. I liked him. I liked his style. But with me, so much comes at me at one time that I can't necessarily be that nice because it's too much. I don't have.
That makes sense.
To everybody, like I am to you.
That makes sense.
I can't. I don't have the time. I just don't have the time. And
now, Mr. President,
somebody like that. Nobody ever came in like I did. Excuse me. Nobody ever came in. They went after me before I got elected. They said we're going to impeach him. Before I was even in office, it was a terrible thing. These people are crude, rude, and vicious. And by the way, he's only a vessel. So is Joe Biden. He's not the leader of the party. He never was. He's a vessel. And he was a perfect vessel because he would have done anything they told him. He even got out when they told him to get out. And she's no different. She's a vessel. I watched her last night. She's got no intelligence. She's got nothing. She's got nothing. And you can't have a leader like that. And so instead, this very powerful party, the Democrat Party, that's vicious and crooked as hell, they take over people. They envelop people, unless they had the right person, but they don't have. They sort of like these people because they're like clay. You can do whatever you want with them.
So you're going to have a very tough choice the day after you take the oath of office, or maybe even the day that you take the oath of office. You're either going to have to pardon yourself or you're going to have to fire Jack Smith. Which one will you do?
Oh, it's so easy. It's so easy. Like, he's a crooked person. He's a dishonest person. We had a brave, brilliant judge in Florida. She's a brilliant judge, by the way. I don't know her. I never spoke to her. But we had a brave and very brilliant judge. And what she has suffered through with these animals is incredible. She was listening to why, putting out statements. She doesn't move fast. She doesn't this. She doesn't that. Well, she moved fast. But the fact is, and the big case was that case, the boxers case. You even said, "Oh, that's a big case." We won the
Yes, I did.
case. We're in the process of winning all the other cases. I think, even sometimes when we have to go to appeal, we got immunity at the Supreme Court. It's so easy. I would fire him within 2 seconds. He'll be one
Will
of the
you
first
pardon
things
Hunter Biden?
I wouldn't take it off the books. See, unlike Joe Biden, despite what they've done to me, what they've done after me so viciously, despite what, and Hunter's a bad boy. There's no question about it. He's been a bad boy. All you have to do is see the laptop from hell. But I happen to think it's very bad for the country. I think you know this, but most people don't, because most people aren't of your talent. I could have gone after Hillary. I could have gotten Hillary Clinton very easily. And when they said lock her up, whenever they said lock her, they start doing 30,000 people, lock her up. What did I do? I always said, take it easy, just relax. We're winning. Take it easy. I could have had her put in jail. And I decided I didn't want to do that. I thought it would look terrible if you had the wife of the President of the United States put in jail. I thought it would be very bad if you did that. And I made sure that it didn't happen, okay? I thought it would be bad. What I didn't know is that they were going to play dirty with me. Who thinks that?
I didn't see it coming. 2 impeachments. I did not see it coming. Now, they will impeach you again on day one if you fire Jack Smith or you pardon yourself. Are you prepared to be impeached again and again and again if they have the House? Because they just will.
No, I don't think they'll impeach me if I fire Jack Smith. Jack Smith is a scoundrel. He's a very dishonest man, in my opinion. Very dishonest man. And they picked a mean man. He's a mean man, but his problem is he's so mean that he always goes too far, like the raid of Mar-a-Lago. I'm going to sue them. I am suing them, essentially. The papers. But I'm suing them for raiding Mar-a-Lago. They went into my young son's room, and they went through his clothing. They went through my wife's room, and they went through...
It's the beginning. That was the beginning of your great comeback. Let me now talk to you a little bit about, again, biographers thinking long term. Your politics are most like that of Nelson Rockefeller's in my lifetime. I just think you are Nelson Rockefeller, except he collected art and you collect golf courses. Did you ever know Rocky?
I did know.
What did you think of him, and what do you think of my comparison of your politics?
I don't think we're that similar. I don't think we're that similar, but I respected him greatly. He was a man that was the biggest upset that he never became president. He couldn't understand it because
he was always mad.
Well, he was mad that he couldn't crack it, and he was a very talented man.
He's a developer. He built 30 Rock, and you're a developer. You built Trump Tower. I just think you're not a particularly conservative. You're not as conservative as Ronald Reagan, and you've tried to make that point. You're kind of a moderate Republican, aren't you?
I think I'm conservative on some things. I'm very, very conservative on trade, maybe more conservative than any human being that's ever lived. I'm very conservative on the board. I would say I'm a strong conservative. I would say, in a way, more conservative because of trade. Look, nobody's conservative on trade than me. Look what I'm doing with the tariffs. I will have our country making a fortune, and I'm a really good businessman. That's what I really am. I will have our country making a fortune within a short period of time.
I believe that. I think you'll bring back nuclear energy. But Reagan had a 600-ship Navy. You're starting at 275 to 280. Do you think you can get the Navy back funded and doing innovative things like the submersibles?
I do, but the problem is, over the last 40 years. We just don't build ships anymore. When you go to shipyards, they don't even make. I mean, the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier came in, 100% over budget, billions and billions, $16 billion or something. And I went to look at it. One of the first things I said, this ship is a disaster. It's been built for 7-8 years and it's not even built. And I went to look. And I said, how come the elevators are magnetized? They're magnet elevators, which is no good. It's okay in good weather, but not when you have the ocean pounding them, right? Instead of hydraulic elevators, right? And I looked at that beautiful sight of the airplanes being thrown off the plane with the steam. I said, why are we using electric? Why are we not using, for the catapult? It's a catapult, what that is. So 50 years we use steam. And I went to the ship and I said to the admiral came. It was a little disrespectful, but the admiral came to see me. I said, Admiral, in all due respect, the ship is 5 years late. It's over budget by $10 billion, and the catapult doesn't work, and the elevators. I'd like to see the catapulters. And I did. I said, let me ask you a question. Which better, steam or electric? Steam's better, sir. Why is it better? Well, it's stronger. It's this, a lot of reasons. It didn't matter. I said, why did they use steam? They met with the architect of the boat. I said, have you designed a ship before? This is like the biggest ship in the world. I think it's the longest ship. It's, the Gerald Ford, the Ford, number one style. And I heard the things that was so stupid. We're using electric. We have electric. Everything has to go electric. The cars, the catapult. But I said, which is better? The steam, sir. Why do they use electric? Because you can go back and forth quickly, but you can't put the plane on. By the time you put the plane on, it takes 48 seconds, and by that time you have a new head of steam. And I can fix it with a blowtorch and a hammer. When the electric, we have to send to MIT to get Dr. John Trump of MIT, because he's the only one smart enough to fix it. Nobody can fix it, sir. And if a wave hits it, it's over. Shorts out. Now, who are the geniuses that do this? So we have a problem. We don't build ships anymore. In World War I, we would build a ship. In World War II, we would build a ship a day. Think of that. A ship a day. Today,
that's what we need.
A ship a year.
That's what the Chinese are doing. Do you think you can task J.D. Vance, task whoever your Secretary of Defense is, we want a ship a day? We don't. I'd take a ship a month if we could get that.
Something that is consideration. I'm saying there are a lot of great shipyards all over the world. Super people allowed that to happen. They've taken the shipping business just like they almost took the car business. I hope you're happy that I stopped the big China plant in Mexico. Right? You didn't know that, right?
No.
I stopped it. Well, then you didn't listen to my last couple of speeches. They were building the biggest plant, and I said, if I'm elected, I'm going to put 100% out on every car. None of them is going to come into the United States. When they heard that, they stopped building the plants. I did Detroit such a favor, and I stopped it just by making a statement. Because the most beautiful word in the dictionary is the word tariff. But these people that were in our country, well, look at her. She doesn't even know what a tariff is. She is.
Mr. President, I have not talked much about her because there's nothing to argue about. She's empty.
No.
She's vacuous.
She's an empty vessel. But she's beautifully pushed around by a very smart, very powerful, very liberal, viciously liberal, but a very, very smart, powerful party called the Democrats. And they're vicious. It's too vicious because that's what it put somebody like Jackson in. Everything he's lost. He's lost almost everything, by the way. You know why he lost? Because he went too far.
Well, let me close with this, Mr. President. Elon Musk made the mistake. I think he did a great thing for the country of buying X and being in favor of you. So the United Kingdom's Labour government is coming after him. The EU is going after Apple and Google. Our, quote, allies are trying to destroy our greatest companies. Now, I want you to use tariffs on China. They're our enemy. And I want you to shut down Iran again. But what are you going to do about the EU and the UK attacking our companies?
Well, if the EU and the UK go after Apple and Google and all those companies, and the great companies, if they do that, then they're not our friends. Do you think they're our friends? Let me tell you, they're just as tough as China, almost. China has a little edge. But if you go to the EU, what they've done is very vicious. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take anything. You have a $312 billion deficit with the EU. You know, the EU is a mini, but not so mini, is a mini China. They treat us very, very badly. And I will tell you, if they're attacking our country, which I know they are, Tim Cook called me up last week, and he said, "Sir, I don't know what to do." I said, "What's your problem, Tim?" He said, "They're the only one I can call because there's nobody in this administration that has any brains." I said, "What's wrong?" They fined me $15 billion, and now they're going to add another two, so it's $17 billion. I said, "By the way, can Apple afford that? That's a lot of money." But they fined them, and they used the money. I said, "Did you do anything wrong?" He said, "No," but everybody sort of says that, I guess. But let me tell you, all of those companies will be set free if you have the right president. If you have the wrong president, like her, those companies will eventually be put out of business because they'll keep doing it. They'll just drain those companies. These are great American companies, and whether you like them or not, the president has to protect them. They have to. That's what I didn't understand about Google. Google is being sued for antitrust by these people. And how can they possibly be on the side of those people? But they are, I guess. Although I think they've become much, if you look at Google lately, I think you're going to see they've become much more inclined towards Trump. They're starting to like Trump because they're starting to get it. But
Well, they are beginning to. Mr. President, I do not want to make you
all
late.
of those
You've got
companies will be in good shape. Don't worry about that.
You've got all the momentum in the world. How do you feel about what your internal polls show you?
Well, they show me that we're going to win before the election because we're winning in Georgia big, very big. We're winning in Michigan. The auto workers go all the way because I'm doing the mandate. We're going to build cars, and we're going to get big factories in Detroit and other parts of Michigan, big, and South Carolina and other places. They're going to.
Well, I'm going to Pennsylvania for Dave McCormick tonight. How do you feel about the Keystone State?
Well, I feel good about Dave McCormick too, and I think I've helped Dave a lot. I put him into every one of them. Don't forget, I have rallies. I had a rally 55,000. I had a rally 100,000 people. That would be the Butler rally. One was 55, and one was 100,000 people. 101,000 people. I put Dave out front. Dave was with me 1 minute. He was on the stage 1 minute before the bullets flew from the maniac. He was standing there 1 minute. He got lucky. He got off the stage. But he was there 1 minute before. He was there right at the beginning, and they flew right at the beginning. He was off the stage. He had just gotten off the stage. He's a very good man, and he will be a great senator. And I think I was extremely helpful to him.
I agree with that. And Bernie Marino and Eric Hovde and Mike Rogers, and you're doing great. Thank you for your time this morning. I hope I talked to you on Election Day, and I've already cast my vote for you. So everyone out there who says I'm easy on Trump, I'm not easy on Trump. I just know what's good for the country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Thank you.
I've interviewed Donald Trump probably 30 times, and that was the first time we've had a bad connection. I believe he's on Trump Force One and called in from the air, but I muscled through it, and I didn't want to try and disconnect and reconnect because it can sometimes get worse. So Dwayne will get the transcript up. The key takeaways. He's going to do his best to deter China from attacking Taiwan. He's going to try and get Jimmy Lai out of jail. These are big news things. And God bless him if he gets Jimmy Lai out of jail, because the man's going to die in jail, and presidents of the United States should be working on behalf of dissidents of totalitarian regimes like China. He is going to use force against Iran unless they abandon their nuclear weapon. It is that clear. He is going to get back into the shipbuilding business in a big way. Now, I know what our left-wing media friends are going to do. They're going to go with the lead that he's going to fire Jack Smith on day one, not pardon himself. He may pardon Hunter Biden. See, in a half an hour, if you answer questions, and President Trump does answer questions that are good, pointed questions, you can get through a lot of ground. We can talk. I didn't know Tim Cook had called him this week. Did anyone? That was news. Tim Cook called Donald Trump. I guess we know where Apple thinks who's going to win the election. And Donald Trump, Apple's not a big fan of Donald Trump. Most of Google's workforce hates him, but he's still going to go to bat for them against the EU. And he's going to go to bat for Elon Musk against the UK. He's going to go to bat for America. This is why he's going to win. Now, I did spend a lot of time, and I wish the connection had been better, because biographers are going to be trying to figure out for a long, long time why so many people have TDS. So many very smart people, people of accomplishment, people of balance, people who understand what he did for the Constitution with his 3 judges. And I know that some people don't like his style. aesthetically, they have a disagreement with him because he wins. He's big personality, and he doesn't take any prisoners in interviews when he gets mad at people, and he speaks off the cuff. I understand all that, but I've got a few Trump tattoos, but this is the business we have chosen, to quote from Godfather 2. I think it's Godfather 2. We don't get to complain about candidates who are mad. And he's right about Kamala Harris. It was disastrous last night. She's an empty vessel for the hard left party that runs the Democratic Party. Donald Trump, to me, is Nelson Rockefeller, a New York developer. And he's not particularly ideological, even though he told me he's more conservative in some ways than Ronald Reagan. We'll see. He's got to get the Secretary of Defense right. He never got it right in the first term. Never got it right. General Mattis is a great American, but generals at SecDef, I'm no longer sold on that after General Mattis and General Austin, only because they staff up with their former military staffs. They are not exactly open to the wisdom of the citizenry that are not veterans who have closely worked with them before. And I think Tom Cotton, Mike Pompeo, Mike Waltz, any of those three, I'll be happy with. And I want it fast. And he's going to do it fast as soon as the election is over. Now, he's feeling good, but he's running through the tape. He's going out to California. He's going to spend 3 hours with Joe Rogan. And I wanted to get a little bit ahead of the Joe Rogan questioning. Joe Rogan is not a policy guy. He's a feelings guy. And that's fine. I'm a policy guy. I want to know about ships. The president knows about ships. He knows about the Gerald Ford. He knows about Iran. He knows about China. He wants to talk about tariffs. I never want to talk about tariffs. I hate tariffs unless they're used in advance of the national interest, because I believe in free trade and making the world rich as well as the rest of the world. But now I'm interested in what you thought. I do want to open up the phones briefly, 1-800-520-1234, 1-800-520-1234. I want you to give me a call and tell me what you thought. It took, so Dwayne is going to take a little bit longer with the transcript today because the connection was bad, but I could understand him pretty well, and we will make sure that the transcript and the audio is out there. The key thing is he will do his best to deter China from attacking Taiwan. He's going to reinvest in the Navy. He is going to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, even if it requires force. He's going to stand with Israel. He is not Kamala Harris. He's going to fire Jack Smith on day one, which is great. It's an unconstitutional appointment anyway. And I'm here to tell you it's going to be a better second term than it was a first term, because he knows I didn't get to, and I was not going to go long, because the guy is running through the tape. He's doing everything. And I greatly appreciate that. And I think that's what Americans know, that they're going to get a hard-working president. Let's talk with Brenda on line one. Good morning, Brenda. Welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. I know you were calling from Louisville. Hi, Brenda.
Hi there, Hugh. Listen to you all the time. Love it. Hey, sir, I swear I thought I heard you say that perhaps President Trump might pardon Hunter Biden. Please explain. What?
Yeah, I want him to. I want him to clean slate. I want him to pardon Joe Biden. I want him to pardon everyone and let the country start over.
Wow. No accountability.
No, you know what? Sometimes it's best to look forward, not backwards.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I don't want to shock you folks. He didn't ask my opinion, but my opinion is it would be best if he pardoned everyone named Biden. He'd have to pardon Joe and Jim, by the way, and maybe the daughters and maybe the aunts and maybe the uncles, because Team Biden has been in the grift business for a long time. I don't think he has to pardon Kamala Harris, because I don't think she's had any jobs whatsoever. Let's talk with Todd in Tampa. What do you think, Todd?
Hugh, great job. Great interview right there. We understood everything. Donald Trump answered every question. Just encouraging everyone to get out. I already voted early. Vote for your Republican Senator, Rick Scott, Tom Cotton, everybody else. Donald Trump, keep pushing, because Harris, like you said, is an empty vessel, an empty head. There's space between her ears, and no American should be voting for her. And we're a constitutional republic, and God bless America. Stand up for Jesus and get out there and vote. Climb over trees.
Thank you, Todd. I've already voted. I want everyone to do the early voting. I'm very encouraged that Americans of all stripes are going out and voting early. And by the way, a bunch of those Democrats are not going to vote for Kamala Harris. And those moderates that are turning out, they're not going to vote for her. And boy, she did herself more damage last night. It's kind of hard to believe how bad she is. And her numbers, well, we saw what the Wall Street Journal numbers are this morning. So let's go talk to Dave in Columbus, Ohio. Dave, I hope you are voting no on issue 1. Are you going to vote no on issue 1? It is a nightmare.
Absolutely. And I hope people realize how bad it is. I appreciate you mentioning, because I think many people don't realize here.
It's 26 pages long. Anyone who's trying to put 26 pages into your state constitution, you should laugh and vote no. So anyway, Dave, what do you think of Donald Trump?
Fabulous. Well, at first, I want to compliment you on asking. Many people ask great questions like, hey, what do you think of tariffs, this and that? But you brought up this idea of why people would have TDS and what people would write about. So I thought that was a great question. Then number 2, I'm glad you illustrated to everyone listening. Imagine anyone asking Kamala those same questions about the Gerald Ford, about the EU, or anything else.
Well, I do believe everyone has gone very easy on her because she's fragile. I just think it's so easy to do 30 minutes with a candidate and get into substance. I mean, we covered China, Jimmy Lai, Taiwan, Iran, shipbuilding, nukes, biographers, TDS, Elon Musk, Apple. You can cover a lot in 28 minutes, and no one has done it with her.
Yeah. And just imagine if someone tried, what would happen?
It would be pretty bad. I think everyone intuits that she's just terribly unprepared, and they don't want to embarrass her. Thank you so much, Dave. Lisa in LA, what do you think, Lisa?
Anyone who says a Biden should be pardoned is out of their mind, and they should be fired.
Well, that's me. Sorry, Lisa, but thank you for I'll let the Salem audience know that you think I should be fired. Just had Donald Trump on for 28 minutes, but I believe in looking forward and marching forward. Nancy in Montana, how are you, Nancy?
Well, good morning, Gloria, Mr. Hewitt. Well, I enjoyed the interview. President Trump was very sincere. He sounded very, very optimistic about our future as a nation. And thank you, and I thank him for bringing up the European Union. Not enough Americans are getting coverage or news on this. And like he said, they are a mini China and a threat to us. And thank you very much for taking my phone call.
You are welcome. Nicholas in Scranton. I'm going to be in Philly tonight, not Scranton. Nicholas, what do you think of the interview?
Good morning, Hugh. Thanks for taking my call. I think the interview you conducted with President Trump was really very, very good, as usual with all your interviews. You just got right to the point. Trump was on his toes. He had answers. He was succinct. He was clear-headed. And I just don't understand how anyone listening to Kamala how do you look beyond her vapidity? I mean, she's so vacuous. She doesn't know anything about anything. It's just amazing.
I have come to that conclusion, Nicholas. I do not know. Now, tell me, you are voting for Tim Sheehy, aren't you?
Tim Sheehy?
He's running for Senate in Montana.
No, I'm in Scranton, PA.
Oh, you're in Scranton. I forgot that. Are you voting for Dave McCormick?
Yeah, of course. I'm voting Republican down the line. You have to.
Good for you,
we live in our country.
Go get 10 people and drive them to the polls. Thank you. Let me go to Pittsburgh and talk to Clyde. Clyde, what'd you think?
Hey, Hugh, how you doing today?
I'm great. Always great when I talk to Donald Trump. Good for ratings.
Here's some good information for you. I'm a Lyft driver, and I've been doing a poll. Right now, 70% of the people in Allegheny County are voting for Donald Trump.
Well, if he gets 70% in Allegheny, it's over.
This is 70% of the people that I've had conversations with about the election. And I have picked up in the last 2 weeks 4 people that are canvassing for Harris. They have been brought in from Atlanta and Philadelphia, all expenses paid and a big salary. And 3 of the 4 told me they're voting for Donald Trump.
Well, thank you. You know what? I don't think that anything matters. People's minds are made up, and we're just putting icing on the cake. Generalissimo, I was hard at work transcribing my conversation with former President Trump that went on the first half hour of this hour, and we'll post the audio. Probably already the audio's up. The connection wasn't great. The former and future president was in the air, and that always makes for a difficult connection. But I could understand him, and Dwayne will, so the transcript might be your best bet today. and I will get back to your calls in just a second. I do want to remind you about our sponsor, andrewandtodd.com. If I'd had more time, I would have asked the former president about getting more homes built in the United States, because the only way to bring down the cost of housing is to actually build more houses and build more apartments. And that means getting the EPA, the ACOE, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service under control. And he's going to do that. We'll get more houses built. But the secret for you as an individual is to get a loan. Because unless you're rolling in dough, you don't need a mortgage. You've got to go get a mortgage. And you want to deal directly with a lender. That's what Sierra Pacific Mortgage, our sponsor, is. That's why andrewandtodd.com have helped thousands of listeners to the Hugh Hewitt Show over the decade that they have been advertising. Now, I know Andrew. I've known Andrew for 20 years. We were in a Bible study together in California back when I lived there. And I've known Todd about half as long. And they're great men. You can call them at 888-888-1172. If you're a senior citizen, you're thinking about a reverse mortgage, they'll take the time to explain it to you, walk you through it. Maybe you're a first-time home buyer. It's just completely overwhelming to you. They'll help you out. They helped out both my boys buy their first house. If you are a veteran, they do VA loan. Whatever you need done, they will get done. Maybe you need a HELOC, home equity line of credit. They're back. Maybe you need that. 888-888-1172, or go to andrewandtodd.com. Let me try and get through all these calls, and we'll start with George in Virginia on line 3. Hello, George. You're on the Hugh Hewitt Show. What did you make of Donald Trump this morning?
Thank you, sir. I could hear it well enough, and so forth and so on. My concern is if Trump wins, and I hope to my goodness that he does, is the degree and quality of help he's going to get from the Senate and the House. I mean, executive orders, I know he can slam dunk, the wall in some aspects of the economy, but I just worry about, the bunch we've got up there in D.C.
That's why we need to keep the House. People need to vote down-ticket Republicans. Got to take the Senate so that we can use reconciliation, which is a very complicated process. But the bottom line is it only takes 51 votes, 50 actually, if you've got the vice president there, to pass significant legislation. He knows what he's getting into this time. He'll move fast. Thank you, George. Chris in Tucson. Good morning, Chris. Get out there, vote for Carrie Lake.
Morning, Glory, Hugh. Long-time listener, first call in. I love the interview. The connection be damned. You get more out of people than about anybody. You are the premier interviewer in America, in my humble opinion.
Well, thank you.
I think the thing that they don't like about Trump, he is so genuine. And every time I hear him, you could just tell he is speaking from the heart, and he's telling the truth. So he is a weapon
he dropped
of
stuff
mass
like
destruction.
Tim Cook called me this week to
them.
worry about Apple and the EU. I'm pretty sure Tim Cook didn't want him to tell people that, but he's authentic. It's just who he is.
He is very genuine, Hugh, and I just think I get up at 3:00 in the morning here to listen to you.
Well,
online. Then they put you on at 4 a.m. on KVOI, The Voice. But I tell you what, you get it done, and I wish every debate had you.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. But there are lots of good people out there that can do it. I just don't think they work for the networks. Thank you, Chris.
Now,
Scott in Florida. Get out there and vote for Rick Scott, Scott.
Yeah, hey, I'm Rick Scott. Hey, my question is simple. Do you think Donald Trump would be...
So we dropped him? Shelby in Virginia. Go ahead, Shelby.
Hi, how are you? This is my first time watching the show.
Oh, thank you.
It. Caught the interview with Trump. I caught most of it, like every other American that should be listening. I caught what I needed to catch.
And so, have you already voted? I'm a Virginian. I've already voted. Have you already voted?
I was in a terrible accident. I fell. I broke a couple of ribs, but I'm getting in my wheelchair today, and I'm going to vote for Trump.
Good for you.
I agree with you on the Biden issue, though. I do. Hunter Biden. I agree.
Oh, well, thank you. I just think, let's turn the page. I want to steal a page from Kamala Harris, who doesn't even know what it means. Let's turn the page and move forward, and maybe the Democrats will settle down and stop this weaponization of everything, because we really do need to focus on the exterior enemies of the United States, both those who are obviously our enemies, Iran, China, Russia, North Korea, and those like the EU and the United Kingdom who are screwing around with our companies. And I am very, very glad. John in Pittsburgh, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. John, go ahead.
Real quick, Hugh, I think that if Trump did pardon Hunter Biden, it would be MAGA-anonymous.
That's very good. That's almost as good as Harley and Dwayne coming up with the art of the meal from yesterday. Generalissimo, I know you're typing away. We'll talk to you on the air check. I want to thank Adam and Harley and everyone on Team Trump for making that happen this morning. Get out and vote. Vote early. You don't know if a snowstorm's coming. You never know when you're going to get rear-ended. The power might go out. The storms might come. Go and vote. Be part of the future of America, not part of the problem.